Welcome, Shubhra. Thank you so much for taking out the time and talking to us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, very excited.
Same here. So, Shubhra, you're an astrologer, an Akashic Records reader, and a hypnotherapist in training. And you previously was a sleep consultant for a good 3 years. And you strongly advocate alternate therapies. And your belief stems out of your personal experience. Tell us a bit about yourself. How did you get yourself to experiment with these therapies?
Well, thank you so much. It was a great question. And it's probably, I'll try to answer it in the shortest way possible because it could be quite a long story of how I got here. Um, I think in a nutshell, I've always been very interested in the healing process of a person or in general. When I was much younger, let's say in high school, I was very interested in psychology and the human mind. But then as I got older, I enjoyed theater and I actually studied theater instead, or creating theater, because I found that to be very healing effect on people when they witnessed an event that could shake them from the core or move them from internally. So I was very drawn to the arts. And as my journey took me, it was not until my daughter was born that I really got interested in the word of sleep, because as we all know, as new mothers who are listening, when a child isn't sleeping, you start to realize just how much, maybe we've taken our own sleep for granted and just waiting for this child to sleep. So I did it in my power to basically try and read as much as I could. And then I engaged in a sleep consultant and I was blown away by the results. And I was just like, what is this magic that people don't talk about? And set forth to try and learn as much as possible about sleep. And that's what led me to my sleep consultant journey. So I trained in children's sleep as well as teen, as well as adult sleep. And it's just really fascinating on how sleep is a basic biological need. It actually trumps food in terms of the necessities. It's oxygen, water, then it's sleep, and then comes food and then shelter. So sleep is quite fundamentally important for all the body's processes, and it is very unique to each individual as well. We are all predisposed by DNA on how we sleep. It doesn't really surface until we're closer to the teenage years, which puberty is, right, when kids, start staying up really late. So there are some teens that sleep much earlier, some sleep much later, and that's actually where the DNA starts to show itself on what type of chronotype or body type of sleep that we come to. Anyway, I won't go into sleep nerdy facts, but it was from there, after doing 3 years of that, I started to understand that part of the sleep also was a mind-body connection. And then, if you talk to any adult and they say, oh, I need more sleep. And you say, great, then just go to bed earlier. And they're like, nah, can't. Gotta catch my Netflix or whatever, right? Like I need to hang out. I need to be surfing on my phone. And it was very much a mindset block, basically. Like, I don't want to give up my freedom or my time for myself. And I, as a mother, I was very similar. Like, I would rather connect to the outside world with social media with the little time I had while my child was asleep than say, oh yes, sleep when the baby sleeps. Like, I can't shut down just like any other person, right? So it's that led me into like understanding how our thoughts then influence our actions, our belief systems influence our thoughts, and then how that actually now is actually connected to things like disease and other health problems from mental or physical illnesses. And a lot of it was formulated, like a lot of it came from my sleep research anyway, because in adult sleep we are kind of a little bit informed about it. Of course, not as much as sleep scientists, but we're informed about it, about the connection between mental health as well as physical health if the sleep is compromised. And I wanted to then think a little bit more about how the thoughts then affect the person to actually decide to sleep more. So that's where the hypnotist thing came into it. So I started actually hypnotherapy training. And it was really in lockdown that I stumbled upon Akashic records and astrology, which is the other extreme of wellness. We're talking, esoteric, woo-woo, spiritual side, like intangible energy medicine, blah, blah. Which I think it has its place. And since I already was dealing with the physical aspects of healing, I was very interested in the energetic aspects of healing as well, the subtle aspects. And I just got onto a course because it was lockdown, circuit breaker in Singapore. Like, why not? I need to do something for my sanity as well, like everyone else. And it was almost like stumbling onto a calling of some kind. When I fell into sleep, I was definitely really, really enthralled by the research and the science behind it and going, why is this not in every textbook around the world in biology? But then when I got into this, it just felt like everything was marrying together. So it's sort of how I started the journey. And now I am much more of an astrologer and Akashic records reader. But I am a huge sleep advocate still, because that is still the biological basis of how our physical and mental health well-being works and operates in the 3D human body level.
That's amazing.
Hopefully that's not too long of an answer.
No, but it's very interesting that, how you're saying it's the third most important component and yet not so much talked about. We all talk about the importance of nutrition and, we're measuring the amount of water we are having, but clearly we're not measuring the amount of sleep we're having.
Yeah, I mean, if your sleep is compromised, your weight is going to probably be affected automatically. So your nutrition gets affected, your gut gets affected, everything basically gets affected. So, because it's the only time that your body goes into repair status and recuperation is in sleep, not in awake. Your awake is to expend the energy, and then in sleep is to preserve and rehash and basically re-energize yourself again for the next day.
Yeah, that's interesting. So tell me, Shubhra, how did you approach the topic? How did you approach it with family and, more importantly, with yourself? Alternate therapies is not very well discussed in the families.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I find, at least in the South Indian or in the Indian sort of diaspora, we're a lot more susceptible to natural or holistic therapies to a certain extent, because we are huge advocates of homeopathy. We're definitely advocates now more than ever about Ayurvedic practices, and probably even some naturopathy principles, although it's probably not considered as naturopathy because it's just like, oh, just take turmeric with haldi milk and get your throat sorted kind of thing, right? And it wasn't coined as naturopathy. It was just what we were told to do. But so I think, in a way, our background as holistic principles was quite normal. As in childhood, I think forgive me if there are other national audiences, but if there was an Indian household, usually you would have a homeopathy cabinet or box sitting around somewhere. For most of the households that I knew, at least, even in Hong Kong, we would still have homeopathy sitting around. And so when it came to the sleep issue, with my daughter, the first question, at least within the family, was like, why not try homeopathy? And I said, listen, that's all well and good, and I am very happy to try it. But I think fundamentally, there's still something that is on a habitual level is not being addressed. Rather than just putting something into the mouth, I rather address the routine, for example. Yeah. And unfortunately, by that point, though, because I was so underslept in general, and I'm talking underslept in decades, so I didn't know anything about chronotypes, or you have the late night owl and the morning bird. And I think most of us who are usually of the later sleeping pattern only feel guilt, essentially, and shame that we cannot, join our family members in their early morning rising, happiness. And we are the late risers and the late sleepers, and we take a lot of shame and guilt for that, but we can't seem to change it. And it didn't make sense that, oh, I need to be like putting a wellness, like a alternative wellness therapy pill in my mouth for it. So that's when I went to do the sleep training for my daughter. The problem was, though, because of being a new mom, and for already 6 months, I was doing this horrendous thing of only sleeping for 2 hours. Unfortunately, every cry that she made, I couldn't fall back asleep because it took me so long to fall asleep anyway. So I would like hover between this sort of like not really sleeping but awake, but my eyes are closed, sort of, time of sleep all through the night until basically 4 a.m., which is when my husband would wake up, and then he would like strap my child in, go for a walk for 2 hours. And then by 6 o'clock, because he had to start getting ready, I took over. And that was our daily routine. And I would just not sleep throughout the day either. So I was severely sleep deprived to the point that once I finally got my daughter sleeping with the help of a sleep consultant, I didn't know how to fall asleep anymore. And that started impacting my health. Like it was like a domino effect. It cascaded so much to the point, like I wasn't eating properly. Nutrition was out of the window because I was so tired anyway all the time. I was hopped up on caffeine because I was trying so hard to stay awake, to make sure that I, can take care of this infant through the night and through the day. And then, one day basically my emotions got the better of me, but it was more of like my mind. I just didn't feel like my mind was very set anymore. It felt like I couldn't really control the thoughts. Usually we have 16,000 thoughts a day. We can't control all of them. But when the thoughts start going, it would just be easier to end this all. It would just be easier to just, go out of the window and fall out of the balcony. If these are the kind of thoughts that were starting to come through, that panicked me, because I was just like, why am I having these thoughts if I have an infant child that's completely reliant on me and no one else around in the house? And that really scared me out of my mind. And that's when I called my husband and was like, listen, we need a few things. We need you to come home right now before I, do anything more than just thinking about it. And he assured me, he was like, listen, the fact that you're calling me is already that you're in your right mind. But I know that you're super concerned, so I'll get out and I'll try and come home as soon as possible. Just take it easy, drink lots of water, and just, breathe, call your parents, tell them to get on a plane if they have to, and just chill, like watch TV, don't care, like just do whatever you watch, Korean dramas, like just distract yourself for a few seconds until I get home. Bless him, because I know he was like in the middle of a meeting and he was like super worried. So I called my parents and they were like, we're going to be on the first flight out. Luckily that time was not COVID time. So I feel for all the mothers that are really struggling without their family around, and being new mothers, especially away from home, because they just got on a plane and came. And then I called my cousin in Australia and I was like, listen, I'm really down. Like I'm on the point that I want to kill myself, kind of down. And he was like, call your gynae, ask them for a referral. They will get you a psychiatrist. Don't worry. It is fine. If you're feeling super bad and you think you might do anything, call the ambulance. But it sounds like you're okay. Just, again, he was like, just watch TV, wait until your husband gets home, and then we'll sort it out from there, but you can do these steps next. And luckily he's a doctor, so he kind of understands this sort of protocol of where to go. Honestly, if he didn't tell me, call your gynae, I would have been like, I don't even know where to start on this sort of like psychiatrist, psychologist hunt and what to do with this, because I was very sure I needed medication. That was my choice. Like I was like, I need to get better fast, because I have a kid and I can't wait for such a long therapeutic process, which I knew a lot of the holistic therapies were a little bit longer. Even the sleep is about a month before you can readjust an adult person's sleep patterns. Nutrition takes at least, a month to 3 months to make a huge difference in the system till everything is detoxed and flushed out and the cells understand the new way of working. So I was just like, I need to do something immediately. And that's why I think Western medicine still has a place where it does. But from there is where I began the holistic journey. So I sorted my own sleep. I went to a holistic doctor. I understood there was imbalance of like metals in my body. I had heavy metal detox. I was allergic to so many things food wise that was causing gut inflammation. That was also related to how mental health can be affected by gut inflammation as well. Teeth inflammation as well. Your gum inflammation can also be related to your mental health, ironically so, but it's true.
Wow.
Um, all of these things. So I just started with just saying, hey, I just need to see a nutritionist or nutritional therapist. And then I just started seeing practitioner after practitioner because I just started learning there was so much more gunk really to clear out, I think, to get back to a healthy level. But it was really peeling off every layer and understanding that much deeper about your health. So that's kind of how the journey of going into all these different modalities. And then I created a podcast to interview all of these practitioners as much as possible as well.
Yeah, I think that's really amazing. I mean, you like you rightly said that sometimes we know the problem, but we don't know how to approach it, how to go about it in a constructive manner. And I think it really helps when somebody shares from his or her own experience, because it's much easier to absorb and say, yes, it's possible, it can happen to us, and there are ways to handling it. I think that it's really amazing that you've put yourself out there for everyone to learn from your experience.
Thank you. I mean, it feels so long ago now that I feel super removed in a way from it, which I can safely say now that I am. But it was, and there have been countless of friends who are going through various episodes of it. So to all the women that are suffering a little bit more and silently, then I hope this helps in some way for them to start getting the help that they need.
I hope so too. I totally so hope that. But tell us something, as somebody who's gone through the postnatal depression, and like you rightly mentioned, there were stages and there were reasons which you had to like literally peel off one after the other. Is our society handling this issue effectively?
It's a very good question. I think we're very lucky to be living in where we do, which is in Singapore. I don't think it's uncommon from what I'm hearing also from friends of friends back home. Are now, quite a few people I've heard who I don't know very well, but I know them kind of indirectly very well. Basically, as soon as they all became mothers, they all have been seeing a psychologist. So it's becoming a little bit more common. I will say, when I was in high school, I took a gap year, and that was because I had depression first hit strongly in high school, to the point of I had to be sent away from school because of my mental health, and they were scared that I was going to hurt myself, and it was a boarding school. So I took a year out to basically just go for therapy, and that again was my choosing. And I went to India to do this therapy because I wanted to also reconnect with my roots, since I never lived there. And I was surprised at the quality of care that I got from the psychiatrist. And he's a very nice gentleman. And I went to a public hospital. And so I was very comforted that in a public hospital, even in Bangalore, there was a wonderful psychiatrist who knew exactly what he was talking about. But back then, I was told, understandably so, that maybe this is not information that we want to divulge with the entire family, etc. So only the closest of the closest members, meaning the people I was staying with, family-wise, and my parents, are the only people that would know. And of course, me and my big mouth would tell all my friends because I had absolutely no shame in it. I was just like, I'm going to see and fix my brain. And that's how it was approached. Then when I had this episode as well, there was some discussion about why I need to take medication, Western medication, and not go to, let's say, a homeopath who could probably also give just as well a great medication, which I've also seen works really, really well. And I had to gently explain to the family member that, this is a choice that I'm making. Previously, I have done holistic therapies of taking, vitamins or whatever it was, homeopathy and stuff. And that was great. But I need something immediately. And I need something that's going to sort it like within the next few days, really, or the next 2 weeks. And and I'm sure there is homeopaths or homeopathy that can do exactly that in a few days' time. But in my head, I was like, I kind of want the combination. I want the psychiatrist with the medication. It was not like I just want medication and run away. I actually want to talk to someone, which there are very few. I know now who they are, but at that time, I did not know any homeopaths that did therapy in Singapore. That I found only recently. I have met people in my network that do that. So if people do want to explore that, I can refer them now. But back then, I just simply didn't know. I didn't know any like practicing counselor or psychologist trained person that also did homeopathy or a holistic practice, right? So yeah, like nutripuncture or homeopathy or Ayurvedic pills, or so. I just didn't know. So my first thing was, let me go to a doctor because I feel very delicate right here, right now. And I need to talk to someone as well. And that's hard. That's really hard for most people. Like, I'm not even sure if my in-laws know. So I know my sister-in-law knows, but I don't know if my parents-in-law, like they actually, I think my mother-in-law knows, but I don't even know if my father-in-law knows.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. But why the shift? How come you shifted from being a complete sleep? I mean, of course, you advocate for it, but now you're practicing being a sleep specialist or some, how do I say, somebody who's like consulting in sleep therapy. Now move to hypnosis and astrology. So tell us a little bit about shift.
Okay, I will try and make it not super long to not bore people out, but I like, again, culturally wise, I think many of us have had very interesting experiences with astrologers. If you have had family that have always gotten your birth chart read or tried to match make and all of this lovely stuff, again, has its place and time. But if we deny our own happiness or deny our own joy, then we're in a route, I feel, that is only just going to bring us further and further away from experiencing this wonderful 3D world and all it has to offer. So prioritizing what really makes you happy or what really makes joy from within is so important. And then really clearly explaining it to the people that you absolutely trust and making sure that those are the people that are surrounding you. In this process, that means that perhaps family members, siblings, close friends may not necessarily be within your network or immediately surrounding you, because for a lot of the times we try to appease others' emotions and their feelings more. And I think especially if it comes to depression or postnatal depression, most of the time the root cause is not feeling enough, is not feeling good enough about themselves. And a lot of the times that is because they're comparing themselves to that circumstance of the people around. So I would always then ask people, who are you really choosing? Are you choosing people because, out of respect? And of course, we always must give respect to people and kindness, but we don't need to put people in a God level when we deplete or demean our own godliness as well. That's not how it should work. So is prioritizing self-happiness or self-joy and then operating from there and surrounding yourself with the right network of people that always enhances your joy and you enhance theirs. It's always a give and take of only joyful transactions. is, I think, the most important, because then if you're a new mother, for example, your child automatically will thrive in that sort of environment. I don't know if that's too deep in spirit in
No,
like
it's
not
deep,
making
but it's
sense.
very thought-provoking that we all need to believe and understand that you cannot take care of somebody else if you are yourself not feeling well.
Exactly.
Be it a
Exactly. If
kid
you
or
are
be
not
it your
truly
dad.
joyful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people feel like, oh, but I have no time to care about my own joy. I have to pay bills and I have to get food ready and I have to do groceries and I have to whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
XYZ. I need to do these reports for work and stuff like that. Problem is then, like, you are operating from a point where you're already, halfway underneath the water, and then trying to say, like, I'm just going to keep, floating and floating as quick, as much as I can.
Much as we
But the
can.
point is to like try and look for land, but they're going, no, I'll just keep floating until basically either I sink or I start calling for help. And I would rather all of us prevent that situation by really starting to go from joy from within first and finding out what that truly is, because then the land automatically comes to you and everything. I mean, yeah, at some point I'll be writing a small book or something about how people have manifested, because ever since I've started the other work as well, how people have changed their lives and made small tiny manifestations and their lives have turned 360 is, I mean, I know for myself, but my story is boring, I think, enough now. But other people, how they've changed since, embarking on these kind of journeys of really experience, trying to find their joy and living their joy every day has been phenomenal. So I really, really believe it starts really from that.
It's amazing. I think that that'll be one interesting book, and we all are looking forward for that.
Me too. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm looking forward to it too.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shubhra. It was really a great pleasure talking to you. And thank you once again for sharing all your experiences.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the honor for sharing my story.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Shubhra.